Hello. Alright. I apologize for my absence. For anyone who is annoyed at the nearly 2 weeks since my last video. Um, what what all can I say? Life happens. Well, moving on. During this absence, I had a conversation with a woman, and this chick actually gets it. Now, she gets it in such a way that it's kind of problematic for a lot of us. Like, this chick actually has a brain. Well, in this conversation, we were discussing what would happen in a world without men. Like, for example, the topic of a number of sci-fi stories have been a Y virus, a virus that only targets the Y chromosome. And what would happen if that were to occur? As we started down in this discussion, it was more of a joke than anything else. Her comment was everybody would be dead inside of 6 months. I actually had to stop and look at her. It's like, what? Are you telling me that females are that fragile, that unstable, that if the men on the planet all suddenly just died out, disappeared, poof, right? You could only survive for 6 months? And then she pointed out something that was so obvious, I had to facepalm myself. Like, seriously, how dumb are you? Her point was that there are so few women in the nuclear sciences, right? That most of your technicians at nuclear power plants are men. There simply are not enough women on the planet with the skills necessary to keep these power plants operational. Now, if all the men just suddenly up and died in the span of about a week, it's probably a safe assumption that not all of the control rods have been retracted. So, as she surmised, very quickly, everyone would essentially die as the result of fallout. And I'm sitting there just looking at her and thinking, damn, 6 months, huh? Okay, well, let's say that doesn't happen. Let's say there is no ultimate destruction of nuclear power plants. There is a certain degree of safety built into the system. And then she's like, well, all things considered, 5 years. And once again, I'm taken back. I'm just flabbergasted at this, that this woman only gives females 5 years without men. And then she goes in to describe, well, most of our power is generated in coal plants. How many women do you see lining up to be a coal miner? How many women do you see lining up to work in the steel mills? How many women do you see lining up to go and work on farms? Yeah, you have a number of urban farmers and women who have experience in alternative forms of growing food, but there's just not enough of them. Well, yeah, you can then go and train others and whatnot. And she comes back, well, yeah, they can learn. But why would they want to? Once again, I was taken back by this. And as she put it, even her dream as a child, and all the way up through her teenage years, her dream was to be a stay-at-home mom, to have a man go out and earn her money by going to work. She's able to stay home while after shipping the kids off to school. This is what she wanted. This is what that some would say, the traditional marriage, which is nothing more than, well, servitude. And she realizes it. She also realizes that so many women have worked this game so stupidly that it can it's almost impossible for it to ever go back to that on a large scale. Some can say that, well, if there's, for instance, Sandman has mentioned the issues of peak oil. Yes, this is an issue. I don't personally see it as an issue as energy production for electricity, and I don't even see it as an issue of fuel for our vehicles. I do see it as an issue when it comes to every other facet of our lives. All your pleather, all your plastics, everything, medicine, all oil, all based from oil, made from oil. If we stopped drilling right now, and I really don't see, as she pointed out, I really don't see too many women going and working on a oil rig to produce this oil. What they will most likely do is sit there and siphon off all the existing wells that are easy to get to, that are hooked up to pipelines and run to an automated system. Anything as to where there's a lot of manual labor and heavy lifting labor, they will typically tend to avoid, even if it means or even if it leads to their own detriment. They just won't do it because it's inconvenient for them. They have almost conditioned themselves to be a ruling class, ruling over a servile class. Well, classes, because you have the children, which have no choice in the matter as to who their family is. They can't choose to up and walk away. They're being their overlords are essentially 10 times their size in weight. Excuse me. So these children are essentially a servile class, as in, if they don't behave, they get whipped, they get whooped, they get hit, kicked, beaten, burned, hair pulled, kidnapped. Technically now, since grounding has been grounding a child has now been declared a form of kidnapping, since it's against their will. Yeah, so wonderful. But I digress. If all the men are gone, there is no buffer to that. If all the men are gone, the women are going to have to go and man the rigs. Well, that's not going to happen. If all the men are gone, someone has to refine all of this material. All the men are gone, they're going to have to ship all of this material. Now, I don't know about you, but I've actually at one point in time driven Class A vehicles. If you're talking along the lines of a 94, 95 Ford 9000, I can tell you from personal experience that if you have an iffy tranny on that machine, and you try and go and push it into gear, that thing can vibrate with enough force to crack a couple of those small bones in your wrist. Now, why do I bring that up? Because, well, we had a woman in our class over at New Way truck driving school in Pontiac, Michigan, a little off the ways from Highway 51. We had a woman in there who had only done office work. She went to try and go and push it into gear, and it didn't line up right. She didn't get the speeds right. She didn't get the RPMs right, and it just sat there and ground on the gears, and that thing vibrated to a point where I could actually see the glass shaking. Like she couldn't figure out how to like back it off and double clutch it in. But hey. Anyways, she ended up going and hurting her wrist. So if this is an indication, there's not going to be too many females that are going to be capable of doing that type of work. Does that mean there are no females that are capable of it? Come on, don't be an idiot. Of course there are going to be. But there's also going to need lumberjacks for wood, lumber. Eventually all these supplies are going to run out. Then we have cotton. I don't see too many of these women going and running combines on a farm, or going out and picking it by hand, or going out and shucking corn. These are things that are predominantly done by men. Husbandry, taking care of animals. Where do you think the term husband comes from? But anyways, getting back. According to her, it'd only be about 5 years, because by that point in time, they will have run out of all of the surplus material left on this planet. Now, I tried to make the argument that, well, as time goes on, more and more women die as a result of not being able to produce certain types of medication. But that wouldn't necessarily mean the extinction of the race. If you have enough women that are lab techs and are knowledgeable, you could set up a form of cloning facility. Her response was very simple and to the point. Okay, let me ask you, how many people are working on this type of technology? And I have to admit, to my knowledge, I think globally only like 30,000 people. As far as the artificial wombs, and as far as that goes. But if it's all women, they may not have to worry about that. But there are certain things that they can do. And her response is, okay, how many women are going to have access to those labs, since they are going to be few and far between? Simply because they're not going to be able to fly anywhere, because where are you going to get all of the jet fuel? You can't go from one continent to another, because most women don't want to be stuck on a ship in the middle of the ocean, which is highly risky. And you have a bunch of women that do not want to go and work on floating oil derricks out in deep water. Once again, I really can't blame them on that one. But getting back on point, once again, yeah, I tend to veer off a lot. But as our conversation kept going, she kept making this point. And then she probably made the most poignant point of all. And all other jokes aside, what happens in a world that is ruled solely by emotional states? What happens then? How many women are going to end up killing each other over something stupid? And I couldn't argue with this. I couldn't even attempt to go and keep pushing the debate. Even though normally I'd be on her side of the argument, I did my best to try and argue the other side. But when you have a world, a global society or civilization that is ruled solely by the emotional whims of a few, that's a recipe for disaster. And I don't know too many people that would actually promote that type of concept. But anyways, I've let this run a little long. My next video is not going to be nearly as far out. I'll probably try and get one of my recordings posted in a few hours from now. Once again, I apologize for the absence in some cases, but like I said, life happens. C'est la vie. Well, have a good evening, and live well.